Hello friends and welcome back to another Paletteful Packs video. My name is Monique Renee and today I have got the July Petite Paletteful Packs box. I'm just going to jump right on in. Let's open her up. Worms. Okay, the first thing I see here is a little bottle of Scratchboard ink. The only colored ink made for Scratchboard. Alright, I don't think I've ever heard of that before, so I'm going to put him and his friends to the side and continue on. Next, it looks like we've got some, they look like calligraphy pens, but I'm assuming they're also for Scratchboard. And down here, yes, we have got Scratchboard. We've got two sizes of Scratchboard here. I don't think I've ever used Scratchboard before. I'm a little intimidated, to be honest. I'm not quite sure how to use these, so I am going to go to our handy dandy info card and see what he has to say. Okay, so this is the Scratch Art box. I've never used Scratchboard. I've never made anything with Scratchboard or Scratch Art, so this is going to be new territory for me. So I'm going to read more information about this. We have got ampersand Scratchboard 5x7 and 5x5. It says Scratchboard is a clay-coated hardboard panel for Scratchboard that's coated with India ink, comparable to traditional paper Scratchboard except better. It is more durable and easier to scratch into for cleaner and crisper details and lines. For added dimension, colored inks can be added to the white areas and then scratched again for additional highlights and volume. We've also got the two Scratchboard knives. They are pretty sharp. So please be careful with these guys. I can see myself cutting myself on these, so just be very, very careful. And lastly, we have the Clayboard inks. Formulated for adding color to Scratchboard and Clayboard, these transparent permanent inks feature vibrant color without leaving an inky residue over black areas. The Petite pack includes 1/2 ounce bottles in carmine red, ultramarine blue, yellow, and black repair. The inks can be used for all types of painting and drawing. So I guess they're not only to be used for this, but they were specifically made for this. So I'd be interested to try this out on like regular paper too, to see if we can use it for like paper art too. I'm not sure if this can be constituted as paper art. I don't know what this is. This is new territory for me. I'm excited, but also intimidated. If we flip our card over to the back, we have a bit of a tutorial on how to get started here. You guys can read this if you would like, but I am going to read through it on my own and then report back. So I'm going to make a guess and say that this may be like using dip pens, but in reverse. Because when you use a dip pen, you dip your pen into the ink and then draw the ink onto the surface. But this is already coated in ink, so I feel like this is going to be carving away instead of painting on, so that's going to be really interesting to see how this works. Like with any new art supply, the best way to break that initial fear of trying something that you've never tried before is just to go on in and start experimenting, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use this guy as my test, as my experiment panel, and then this guy I will try to do a finished illustration on. So I'm glad they sent us two because, woof. So here I have my board, I have my little knife, and I'm just going to try to make a mark. And there we go. So this is, it feels interesting. It doesn't quite feel like using a calligraphy pen because there's this resistance behind it. It does more feel like you're carving into clay or something, which is a really interesting feeling. So we've got this one. He's like a very fine line guy. But we've also got this one, and he has a bit of a broader, smoother edge. So I'm going to see if I can maybe get some different line weights with this guy. Oh, yep, there he is. Can I do like a swirly? I can. Okay, so if you put a little bit of pressure behind him in the right area, you can get these different line weights going on, which is interesting. But you can also get fine lines with this guy too. Just doing this motion is really fun. I could do this for a few hours and it would be fun. Okay, moving on. So I'm actually going to clear away a big area, I think. All right, so you've got a little bit of space cleared away that's all white, and I want to see how the ink works on it. And I'm just going to take this and drop a tiny bit right on. That's a lot. Oh, that's really pretty though. Wow, that's fun. This is fun. This is relaxing. I like this. I'm gonna see if I can maybe dab some of it up now. So you can lift the inks up a little bit with water and a paper towel, and that creates kind of like a nice gradient. Let's add a little bit of yellow right there. So you can do mixing like right on the canvas too. The way these inks behave, it may be fun to do some kind of like tie-dye thing. That's kind of the first idea that came to my brain. I've got some black ink on my paintbrush and I'm going to see if I can just kind of cover one of these guys up, which I can. I'm not sure if that's going to like completely fade in with the black of the background, because right now you can still very much tell that was kind of painted on. So we'll see how that looks like when it dries. And of course you can always go in and add like black detail over these inks. They're not completely dry, so it is feathering out a little bit, but you can always go in and add detail or maybe clean up edges, like if you wanted this to be like a black box, you could do that. Very interesting. This is a very interesting art supply, and I think that it's working my brain in a way that I'm not used to working when I do art, so this is going to be interesting. This is going to be very, very interesting. So you can see where I painted that little line before. It's pretty much dissolved into the back. You can still see it when you tilt the canvas a certain way, but if you're just looking at it head on, it pretty much disappears. So that's cool. I think what I'm going to do now is try actually sketching something out and kind of seeing how I would go about creating an actual art piece. This is going to be a lot of experimenting. I don't really know what I'm doing, so I'm just going to go for it. So I'm just going to take a regular graphite pencil and start doodling a character. This is really satisfying to like draw on because it makes like a fun tappy noise. Not sure if this is even coming up on camera, so I'll probably just skip past this real quick. What's your name, man? Alexander Hamilton. So I've got this little thing sketched out. It's just a little character, a quick little face, something that I'm comfortable with that I just kind of want to experiment with. I think this itself looks kind of cool. Like, this is kind of fun. You can erase on this, but it does leave a bit of a residue, so I would just kind of be careful about that. What I might even do on the final illustration is do my sketch off of this board and then transfer it using like a graphite transfer technique. But we'll see. For now, I'm just going to go in with these knives and I'm just gonna start carving, I guess. Yeah, let's see how this goes. So I want to walk you guys through what I did. I did a lot of different things in this video because I wasn't quite sure what was going to work and what wasn't. So I kind of just tried a lot of everything. And the end product ends up looking very, very messy, but also kind of cool. And it's not by any means a finished product, but I think it does do a good job of showing how you can play with these supplies and maybe some things that you can test out for yourself and see how they will work for you. So the first thing I did was start carving out this character, and carving is such a weird word to use because I'm doing the action of like inking or drawing, but it doesn't feel like it because there is that like resistance from the canvas. So maybe etching is more of a better word. I used the pen basically to etch out the places where I had drawn the character. And this was kind of hard to wrap my mind around because when you etch, it etches white, and usually you paint with black. So this was kind of an inverse of what you usually do. But I also thought it was really fun and really interesting. And I mean, before I added color, like right here, I think it looks pretty cool. But something that was really, really fun that I kind of got carried away with was doing these tiny, tiny, tiny little etch marks with the hair and the eyebrows and the eyelashes. You could get such thin, delicate, delicate lines. And doing these like hatching techniques was just so much fun. Like, I think it's so satisfying to watch back too. Just like, ugh, I love it. And it was so satisfying to do it, and I could honestly just sit there and etch out little strands of hair all day because it was so fun and relaxing. Another fun thing about this that I wanted to point out is that there was no stress with trying to make a really nice finished piece with this, because I knew deep, like in the back of my brain, that whatever I did the first time using these probably wasn't going to turn out that good. So I let myself just have fun and try different things. And I think that is really the beauty of trying a brand new art supply, because if I'm using a supply that I know how it works and I know what I'm doing, then there's a little bit of that pressure to be like, oh, okay, well, it's got to turn out good because I know how to use these supplies, right? With this, there was none of that. I was just like, let's do whatever. Let's just do whatever and see how it looks. So it was really freeing in that way to just kind of be like, this probably isn't going to turn out good anyway. Let's just have fun with it. So I encourage you to go into this with that kind of mindset. If you are worried about these supplies because they are so different and new, don't worry about making something that looks quote unquote good. Just focus on how the art supplies make you feel and how much fun that you're having with them. And then the whole thing will just go over smoother and you'll learn more that way too. Anyway, so that's what I did with the etching portion. I tried to keep in mind to create different textures with different line weights and different hatching techniques. So I definitely recommend you play around with that. Something else that I did that I thought was actually pretty useful was I took a picture of what I was working on, and then I took that picture into Photoshop and inverted the colors. And when you invert the colors, what's black is white and what's white is black. It flips it up. And because that's kind of what I was doing in the first place, when I inverted it, it kind of showed it how an art piece would normally look with like white on like white background with black lines. And by doing this, I was able to kind of take a look and compare the two and be like, oh, okay, so when I make this mark, it looks like this. But if I wanted, say, the whites of her eyes to be white instead of black like they are here, I would have to kind of invert the way I drew the eyes in the first place. So being able to have that kind of comparison was super helpful because I could modify the way that I went about drawing this. Now the next thing I wanted to do was I wanted to test these inks because they were so pretty and I was so pumped about them, and they are so gorgeous. Like the way that they pop against the black once you place them onto the white parts of the painting, they're just like bam. So I tried a few different techniques with them. With the hair, I tried just brushing them over the white parts. And then for these clouds here, I wanted to try to mix them with water and see if I could get some different like textures and blooming effects, which I did. So then that led me to kind of experiment a little bit more. So what I did was I started etching out this leaf pattern on her shirt. So I cleared away these kind of like leafy shapes, and I just kept repeating that until it looked like she had like a pattern on her shirt. Here I also tried some different hatching techniques. So feel free to use those and see if you can use that black popping out to your advantage. I wanted more black to show up on the bottom of the leaf to kind of show the leaf get darker as you go down. So that's something you can experiment too. But what I did was I placed these bright colors directly onto the canvas, and I mixed them on the canvas too. So I would place like a dollop of bright yellow and a dollop of bright green right next to each other, and then with the paintbrush still having paint on it, I would then kind of mix them together. And this created some really cool textures. So you have like many layers of textures going on here. You have the texture of the etching itself, and then you also have the texture of the paint underneath it. And mixing these, I feel, if you really played around with it a lot, you could get some really, really, really cool and deep effects with them. So that's something I am definitely going to be trying in my next painting, is kind of using both layers of textures to my advantage. I wanted to play around with foliage a little bit more, so I took some time and I wanted to draw like a lily of the valley. So like I mentioned before, I did this hatching technique with the leaves where it gets darker on the bottom, lighter up front. And then I colored it in again with the paint with green on the bottom and yellow on the top. And this did create like a really cool effect. And then I went in with the scraper again and I just scraped apart some tiny little lily of the valley flowers, and I think this looks really cool. And I think this was kind of a breakthrough moment for me too, where I was like, all right, I feel like I'm getting the hang of this. And there we have it. Here is the finished piece, which is basically just one big ol' experiment. But as you can see, I tried a lot of different things. Over here, I actually tried some different ways to draw eyes and mouths off camera. So there really are so many different ways that you can approach this. So I encourage you to just go in with these cool knives and just start hatching away, see what works, see what doesn't, and just have fun, because that's exactly what I did. I hope you guys enjoyed hanging out with me and going on this journey as we try to navigate an entirely new art supply together. Please, please, please show us your work on social media. Make sure to tag us in all of your posts. We would love to see how you approached this. If you have not yet become a member of the Paletteful Packs family and you would like to, also make sure to check that description down below so you can join us. And that is going to be all for me today. Until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye guys!